If you were a kid or even a wrestling fan in the 90s, you knew pickings were slim when it came to wrestling games. You had the arcade classics that played more like Mortal Kombat than a true wrestling simulator, but if you had a Nintendo 64, you were in luck. Wrestling games were going to be changed forever. One of those games that helped change the wrestling landscape was WCW vs. NWO Revenge. The game was released in October of 1998 and was developed by the Aki Corporation. This game is a direct sequel to WCW vs. NWO World Tour. This game has the same Aki grappling system, but includes a larger roster, more arenas, a championship mode, and a lot of technical issues that have been corrected, making for a much more complete game. Now, at the time the game was released, the WWE had just started beating Nitro in the ratings, but this didn't affect the sale of the game. It would go on to be the highest selling third-party Nintendo game and the highest selling wrestling game for the Nintendo 64 in 1998. Upon its release, WCW vs. NWO Revenge surpassed the sales of World Tour and within a month became the highest selling console game in North America. Now, fans of these games have debated for a long time about which one is the best of the Aki wrestling games. World Tour, Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, or No Mercy. Revenge might not be the greatest of those games, or all wrestling games, but it is hands down the best WCW game ever made. Wrestling games at the time like WWF Warzone had terrible mechanics, and was all around just bad games. Aki would eventually get the license to make WWE games, and at that point would no longer make WCW licensed games. Now let's take a look at the expanded roster this game provided. For the NWO, you can play as Hollywood Hogan, The Giant, Bryan Adams, Scott Hall, Scott Norton, Buff Bagwell, Eric Bischoff, and Scott Steiner. For the NWO Wolfpack, you got Big Sexy Kevin Nash, Sting, Lex Luger, Macho Man, and Conan. For the Flock, you can play as Raven, Lodi, Riggs, Sick Boy, and Reese. WCW boasts the biggest roster and has a lot of greats to choose, like DDP, Goldberg, Bret Hart, Chris Benoit, Rick Steiner, Fit Finlay, Booker T, Saturn, Disco Inferno, Jim Neidhart, British Bulldog, Glacier, Van Hammer, Yugi Nagata, Larry Zbyszko, La Parka, Stevie Ray, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Psychosis, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Juventud Guerrera, Ultimo Dragon, Chavo Guerrero Jr., and Alex Wright. Then we have some made-up characters for the game: Aki-Man, Shogun, Executioner, Dr. Frank, Jackal, Maya Inkaboy, Hawk Hanna, Kim Chi, Daken, Brakowski, Ming Chi, and Hanzo Moon. All the characters come with an alternate attire, and if you choose Rey Mysterio, you can actually use his Halloween Havoc attire he wore against Eddie Guerrero. Now you might look at these character models and think, wow, this looks bad. But back in 1998, this looked good by those standards. Check out this movement and models from Warzone. This game was leaps and bounds ahead for its time. Then for arenas, you only get 6 arenas, but they make them count. You can choose Nitro, Sold Out, Super Brawl, Bash at the Beach, Halloween Havoc, or Starrcade. If you grew up watching WCW, these arenas are pretty accurate. This Halloween Havoc stage looks like it did back in 1997. And for modes, you have the Championship mode where you can challenge for the Heavyweight, Cruiserweight, and Tag Team Championships. There is no in-depth story, and all you do is beat 10 opponents in a row, and the final will be for the championship. Later Aki games like No Mercy would go on to have one of the best career modes in wrestling games. Then you have your standard exhibition modes where you can choose either singles or tag matches. And there isn't a lot of variety either when it comes to the special matches. You have a Battle Royal or a handicap match. WCW vs. NWO did offer a costume change where you could customize the character's ring attire. I remember doing this as a kid for the Wolfpack. I really loved the NWO black and red, so I would add a lot of members to that faction by just changing their attire to black and red. And I just want to touch on the character models again. I know by today's standards, you take a look at this and you're thinking to yourself, man, this really isn't that good. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, compared to other wrestling games of the time, they are on a whole nother level. Just for fun, let's do a comparison of the Steiner Brothers in Revenge versus the Steiner Brothers in WWE 2K23. I mean, wow, look at the difference. Graphics in general sure have come a long way. This game plays superb, and even after all these years, I can pick this up and still remember the movesets. It plays just how a wrestling game should. It is not overcomplicated, and it's very true to the 90s WCW. I feel like any singles matches you play, you will have run-ins, and 90s WCW sure did love their run-ins during a match. You can also grab weapons from the crowd. You can't put your opponents through tables or anything like that in this game, but hitting your opponent with a trash can be very satisfying. I remember as a kid I would take a piece of paper and create my own storylines and rivalries. With the lack of an in-depth story mode, your imagination could run wild with this game. And I might just be seeing this from nostalgia, but I really enjoyed that. Nowadays you have My Universe mode and My GM mode that lets you do the same things as I did when I was younger. All in all, this is a timeless classic that helps set the standard for wrestling games. I know a lot of wrestling fans wish the current games could capture what made the Aki wrestling game so great. I want to make a video that covers No Mercy and also Here Comes the Pain, two games that also withstand the test of time. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel. We just hit over 2,000 subscribers, and I couldn't be more thankful. I know my upload schedule can be kind of spotty sometimes, but I have a family and free time can be hard to come by. If you liked the video, please drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We have a video coming up about Vampiro's run in WCW and a video about Batista's very first title run. I've seen a lot of requests in the videos about Vampiro, so I know there's a lot of you guys out there who don't want to miss that. So make sure that you're subscribed and you turn the notifications on. So until the next video, I hope everyone out there who's watching this stays safe, and we'll see you on the next video.